topic, Rail meets Hyperloop. Tonight at the ÖBB, next to the central station of Vienna. So many thanks to host it here, that we can be here for the room. Many thanks also for sponsoring Schlumberger, sparkling wine. Hopefully you will drink later, but you don't need. It's free. And also sponsoring of AD, friends of mine sponsored the snacks here, so you can try it too after the podium discussion. But now, I want to start. And please warmly welcome to Kai Moog, Business Development Director of NS. Thanks, it's great that you are here. Please warmly welcome Christina Schiedelbauer, Team Leader Corporate Development PS at ÖBB. Thanks. I have a deeper connection to Italian now. Some of you knows it. Also the crowd behind it. Giuseppe Cascasi, Team Leader, Studies and Systems Innovation, BU RFI. Warmly welcome. A warmly welcome to Mars Guetze, Chief Commercial Officer at Hardt Hyperloop. Welcome. A warmly welcome to the Managing Director, Deutsche Bahn Digital Ventures, Manuel Geres. A warmly welcome. Yeah. And now we need one table more. So please, Lucas, can you support me to bring a table here? You see it's live. It's really, life is live. So we forgot one table. Please warmly welcome to the Chief Innovation Officer, Rail, Freight and Multimodal, SNCF from Paris. Welcome. 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 Listen. So we know all each other because we spent the whole day together. I will spend also some days in the future with you guys and ladies to work on that topic. So let us start. Please let us start with a short introduction about yourself and what is your motivation for the Hyperloop technology. Or maybe you don't have a motivation, but hopefully you have. That's why you are here. We are all open now because of the music. That's great. And now, Kai, my friend, what do you think, not about yourself, but about the Hyperloop technology, and give us a short, briefly update what you are doing in your job.
Thank you, Martin. Well, maybe to start off with, say my passion for the Hyperloop. Say I'm a spatial planner. That's my background. So most of my professional life, but also my personal interest, has been in mobility as well as urban planning. Well, and then I think that is typically something that comes together in the concept of Hyperloop. So that's where my personal interest comes from. And in addition to that, as NS, we have been involved in Hardt Hyperloop, I think more or less from the start. And I do think that is really valuable for us as a company as well, and fits in nicely with my role as Business Development Director, because this really is business development, say, in the longest horizon.
Thank you. Thank you. Christina, we know each other from also, you are part of the Future Mobility Executive Club. Thanks supporting me to have this great audience and the room and the space and all. Hopefully you got not so many yellow cars because of supporting such a great event here. Can you give me a short overview what you are doing, and what do you think about the Hyperloop technology?
Well, the Hyperloop technology is a new technology, is new components coming together, new form of mobility, and that's always interesting. it's apparently the Hyperloop should travel with about 1,000 kilometers per hour. So the speed itself is a fascinating thing. As a strategy expert in mobility in Austria, I am of course interested in that new technology, in all kind of new technologies in mobility. So of course the Hyperloop is interesting for me, for myself and for my work for ÖBB.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I am therefore I'm really happy that you're all here today and we can host this event. The afternoon was really interesting. So the discussion, I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you. So now I look to Hyperloop Poland because we have not so many seats here, but you will be part of the discussion in the end. So please stand up, Hyperloop Poland, and give me also a briefly update what you are doing and where you are, Kasia. Please look into the. It's live. It's really live. So we need that you stand up and.
So my name is Kasia Folianti and I am a co-founder of Hyperloop Poland. There are two of my colleagues here as well. And we are developing the Hyperloop system, but in a 3 steps. So we are actually aiming to use the existing railway infrastructure in the step 1. We can gladly discuss more in detail after the panel discussion.
Great. Thank you that you're part of it, and thank you for your active part in the workshop in the afternoon.
Thank you, Martin, for the invitation.
You're welcome. So, the next person, warmly welcome to Giuseppe. We had a short, call, I think 10 days ago, with you and your guys and girls from RFI. And you were so open-minded and you said, yeah, Martin, thank you for the invitation, and now you are here. I see you in live, and now we can discuss the topic. So why you are here and why you went to Vienna?
So my team is essentially in charge of exploring future mobility scenarios, and as the target to understand how an infrastructure manager like RFI can support this future mobility in the next years. So this is our interest in the Hyperloop technology. I really think that the Hyperloop is a sustainable revolution in mobility. It can really reshape the way we think, the way we work, the way we live, and the way we understand the city and spaces. So that's why I'm here.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
That you came. Hopefully it's not so warm for you. It's quite warm for me with a jacket, but the gentleman style, and Italian people do the same like me. Now we will spend the next 4 hours here on the podium. It's like a sauna, but yeah.
You look very Italian.
Yes, thank you. Maybe when the baby is coming up, we will see. It will be half and half in the end, yeah. We will see. Hopefully, yes. My friend Mars, I went to you several times.
I went to you several times.
Also, so we got the matching on Tinder. No, joking. I like girls. And and I will come back again. It's not a joking, because you're doing also great work. What you are doing exactly and why you are doing it.
So I'm one of the founders of Hardt Hyperloop. Why am I doing it? I think it's a little bit in our tagline. Our tagline is no boundaries, no limitations.
Yeah.
When I think about, just life in general, I want to be able to do whatever I want to do without damaging others, of course, but just being free to do what you want. And that's also part of that is being able to travel, to go to new places, to get new experiences, and to diversify yourself that way. And what I really like about Hyperloop and why we're doing this is, well, first of all, we do see that in the long term, the way we're traveling right now is not going to be sustainable. Aviation is growing in an unsustainable way, and we want to provide an alternative for that so that we can keep traveling at least the way we're doing right now. But also, by introducing a Hyperloop, you also get completely new ways in which you can travel. So you make connections in a time frame where you now could not even travel, right? So you could completely rethink the way that you would normally do your urban planning or your life planning, or live somewhere else than you would work and have a completely free life. So this is the reason why we're doing this. And what we're doing specifically, we're developing Hyperloop technologies. We're trying to bring together all the stakeholders who somehow need to be involved to get a Hyperloop off the ground, and then work together to bring the Hyperloop from concept to implementation.
Well, thanks. I'm glad to be here. I'm also glad to be here.
I'm also glad to be here.
And you are also maybe glad to be here. Thank you. Yeah, my English, I'm working on it. Maybe next time we do it in my mother language, maybe Italian language. I work also on it, you know, every Wednesday I go to classes. So next time we will do it in Italian. Yeah, try and error. So, yeah, warmly welcome to Manu Egaris. He is giving me, the stage and also a lot of, not free time, but a lot of freedom to create this here, to create it with such great people, internal and external. And I'm happy that he is here. He is director of DB Digital Business and also of my division, New Digital Business. And I'm very glad to work with you together.
Oh, thanks, Martin. That's great to know, first of all.
How many of you?
It's not totally new for me, but thanks. So some sense about me. My name is Manuel, and I'm running the VC department of Deutsche Bahn. It's a global investment fund. We invest in several startups in the mobility and logistics field. And the reason why I'm here today is, just to be honest, to learn something. I'm not really have a deep dive in the Hyperloop technology at the moment. I understand that there's something new and coming up. And for me, from a mobility perspective, I think it's much better than, or much more interesting than the typical mobility solutions we find on the street now. For example, a switch from bike to e-scooter or something like this. I think that's a common thing. That's great to see, but to learn about this new technology and how we can change the world with it, it's the reason why I'm here. And thanks for having me.
Thank you. The next one, before SNCF is coming. Celeros, it's also a great startup who is working on the Hyperloop technology in Spain. Warmly welcome that you are here. Please give us a short introduction and clap your hands for him.
So
Sing a song. And sing a song. Let's sing a song.
yeah. So so thank you very much for the introduction and the invitation. We are developing the Hyperloop in Spain, and our vision is to develop a scalable system that learns from the past, from the railway and the aerospace industry, by making a system that has a low infrastructure cost, so we can make kilometers and kilometers without thinking about, okay, this is going to cost a lot of money for the public sector. So we are planning the 2-kilometer test track in Spain for next year, and we are also cooperating at international level with our partners from other Hyperloop companies, and also with Renfe, that is an operator that is not here, but they will be also gladly interested in participating.
Thank you that you're coming. Yeah. And last of all, Mr. Bertrand Minary von SNCF. You had a little bit troubles with, not with the train today. That's nice, but with the plane.
With the plane.
So warmly welcome. I took a shower after that because I thought he is not coming and he is not pick up his phone and not answering my emails. But now he's here and I'm happy and I feel safe and thank you.
Thank you also. Yes, from the user experience, it's not quite good today. My name is Bertrand Minary. I'm the Chief Innovation and Digital Officer for all the activities linked with rail freight activities at SNCF. So I'm quite the man that will be boring you tonight because I won't talk about passenger but about freight. And this is normally I talk to the citizens you are. Perhaps you don't know, but if actually things remain the same, in 10 years there will be more than 1 billion of more trucks on the road in Europe. 1 billion of more trucks, it's the equivalency of all the German traffic in the next 10 years. The trouble we have is to make the modal shift from road to rail, And if we are able to do that, we need to cooperate together with all these wonderful companies we are representing tonight, but also we need to find some new businesses, new ways of thinking, new ways of producing. And in that case, Hyperloop could be one of these. And I'm very proud to say that also we are working on this, but also we have a short-term task in order to transform the rail freight and classic rail freight also to do at the same time. But anyway, Hyperloop is one of the lever we can activate.
Oh, great, great. We discussed, and thanks that you are all here, that you spent the next hours with me. And also thanks to the audience that you are here. You will play a much more active role after 10 hours, after 60 minutes. So we will open the microphone here and you can sing a song. No, you can discuss with us the topic. And the reason why we are here is we want to discuss the idea for a European Hyperloop implementation program or a Hyperloop implementation standard. And I want to give the question to you, Mars. What is your biggest challenge up to date? Which support do you need from the audience or from the train operators or companies?
So I always like to explain the biggest challenge of a Hyperloop in a loop.
Okay.
So basically, in order to get to the Hyperloop network and all the benefits from it, we were going to need a lot of investments beforehand into infrastructure. Now, before we can get to the point where we can invest a lot of infrastructure, of course, first we need to have the public acceptance. People need to understand what a Hyperloop is, how it works, that it's something nice to travel with, what kind of benefits they could have with traveling with it, that it's safe. And in order to show all these things, especially the safety part, we're going to need to build large test infrastructure. In order to test the Hyperloop, you will need to show it at a few hundred kilometers per hour. So you will need quite a few kilometers of testing infrastructure. But then you're kind of back to the first step, because the first step was that we needed a lot of investment into infrastructure. So there's a sort of a loop where you actually need a lot of money to get to the point where you can test the technologies, to give people the idea that it's safe enough so that you can start building it. So that's why our challenge is, how can you phase this development in such a way that you just take small steps, that you build a smaller facility. We now built a very small facility, only 30 meters, so you can't go 1,000 kilometers per hour. But we can show everything at least at a low speed, at full scale, because that doesn't cost that much. And that helps to get the support, because people see, hey, at least this works. Now the next step is to build it faster. And because of that support that you get, you can finance the next step. So I think the challenge is mostly that you have to sort of play the chess game on multiple boards at the same time and taking the step-by-step approach. But up to now, the step approach works pretty good. So the challenge, I think, is overcomable.
Great. You're a tough guy, and you have long hair.
Like you.
Yes, yes. We will see. We will see. You can look at my father, then you see the answer. So for the other panelists, the question: what is currently the greatest challenge in implementing a European infrastructure network?
Well, I think the nice thing of having a few railways here together is that I think what, say, Hyperloop can learn from rail is how not to create a single European network. Because I think as railways, for all kinds of probably good and not so good historical reasons, I think we are still having big challenges in really creating a European network, both from a technical as well as from a consumer perspective. And I think also, thinking back at the discussions we had this morning, there is an opportunity for Hyperloop to start off right. And that is about almost all aspects of how the concept is going to look like at the end. And that might maybe at the end also help when it comes to those difficult investment decisions where Mars was already talking about.
Thank you.
I think that that's one of the most important topics, the interoperability and also the interconnectivity between the two different transport modes. We need, or we all work on optimizing the European public transport system, and if we establish a new system, it should fit into the system. It should make the system easier and not to build another barrier for one more system.
Yeah, okay. Second, sorry? Ah, sure. It's you? Up to you. No, for sure.
I think that one of the greatest challenges will be the technological maturity of the Hyperloop as an ecosystem. So not only in terms of maximum performance achieved, but also thinking about the completeness of the solution proposed. So we have to think about the design of the stations, the level of integration with other transport modes, the safety issues, the accessibility of apps, the general travel experience, and so on. I think that the Hyperloop must be developed since the beginning as a system and not as a just as a technology.
Okay, great. Thanks for your open mind.
Thank you.
Manuel, now you are.
So what I think from let's say an investor perspective, I think what would definitely help out if we find a standard for Europe. So if we have different transportation modes, and we all know this from the typical rail infrastructure thing. If you have different operation modes, then there's not really good connectivity. And if we can find a way in the first step to define a technical and maybe also a government side solution that helps Hyperloop to bring on the table or on the street or whatever you name it, that will definitely help out. And what I learned today a little bit is that there are different technology solutions at the moment, and I think that's not the perfect situation to define a European network. I think we need a standard in Europe to operate the system later on.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Bertrand, you invested in, from the perspective of SNCF in Virgin Hyperloop several years ago, a huge amount of money. What was your purpose? What was your idea? Why you did it?
The SNCF Group invested in 2016 in Virgin Hyperloop 1, yes.
3 years ago.
Yeah, 3 years ago. We have a dedicated team that share our experience of TGV, that means mass transit traffic, because more than 30 years of experience in high-speed traffic without any accident in commercial way. So that's the point where the discussion began with Hyperloop. And we consider Hyperloop as, in France we say, relais de croissance, that means new ways of mobility. And this, we want to know what could be this new way of mobility. And so we had a lot of discussion about not the concept, but now we are going into details in terms of operations, safety, infrastructure, and things are quite difficult now, to be honest, because we are in the front of the investment, what could be the necessary managing of the infrastructure, operation, etc., etc. So is it a challenge, as it was said before?
Why you didn't invest it several years ago in a European Hyperloop startup?
Okay. This is an unknown question for tonight.
Guy.
Yeah. You're a sympathetic guy. No, to be honest, I think it was the first project at this moment, and first concrete and real project, operative project. So this is why we decided to ramp up very quickly in the Hyperloop vision.
And it was to share the knowledge? It was the idea to go oversee and to see what...
Absolutely. It was a crossing experience, 30 years of railway and high-speed traffic and mass transit, and a new way of operating and a new rolling stock operation. Yeah.
Great. And I heard about it that NS also invested in such a great guy who became a friend. Why you did it? Why you invested in Hardt Hyperloop?
I think the starting point for NS really is that, say, we want to be about door-to-door sustainable transport. And linked to that, we want to support initiatives to realize that dream today and also tomorrow. And because of that, we are also investing, for example, in car sharing or bike hire initiatives, which are maybe the more low-tech solutions of today, but sometimes also big solutions for tomorrow. And I think almost at the other end of the spectrum is our investment in Hardt, which is a more longer-term solution, of course. But at the same time, and I think that is an important side effect, I think it is really attractive for actually our colleagues and myself to work with Hardt and all, say, the companies surrounding Hardt and actually on tomorrow's tasks, but using today's knowledge. And that brings a lot of new solutions which we can already use today, actually.
Mars, what do you think about it?
It's fantastic.
You're the
because
funny,
no, but
be a
see-
funny guy now.
No, but the point is that it makes no sense to reinvent the wheel, right? So there's already so much knowledge from different sectors, of which rail is obviously a very important one if we're talking about Hyperloop, because it's also large-scale infrastructure, vehicles that look a little bit like trains traveling through it. So there's a lot of aspects that we're looking into, whether it's route development, whether it's looking into what would a Hyperloop service look like, how do you do the ticketing, how do your luggage, the security issues and so on. There's already a lot of experience from the rail sector that we can learn from and also incorporate the good stuff at least into the Hyperloop and that's why I think that it's great to have NS was our first investor, so that was a very good start to have a good sort of kickstart to the Hyperloop development. Yeah.
Wow. What are the advantages, the major advantages between the Hyperloop technology compared to the plane or the ICE, to a train?
Yeah. So first of all, I think why are people now often using? It's not all about speed, because for example, if you look at just the connection between Amsterdam and Paris, we have high-speed rail there, and most people are using high-speed rail there for the point-to-point, city-to-city connection, Amsterdam-Paris, even though going with the airplane in principle is faster. But one of the problems with the airplane is often that you leave from the location where you didn't want to leave, and you arrive where you didn't want to arrive. Right? You want to get from city center to city center. So ground transportation systems are often easier to at least get you closer to the point where you want to be. So this is at least one of the reasons why high-speed rail is a very good alternative for aviation. But there's also a certain range at which that benefit is not sufficient anymore, because the speed is just not sufficient anymore. Somewhere above 700, 1,000 kilometers, the speed of high-speed rail just becomes not competitive enough to be able to compete with aviation. And the problem with aviation right now is that basically all the airports are getting stuck. In the Netherlands you have the Amsterdam Schiphol airport, maximum 500,000 flights. We hit the roof, and the only solution is to put it at sea, which is going to cost a lot of money, or just to limit the flights at all. And if we would be able to accommodate those flights, it's not going to be sustainable. We will not reach our climate agreement. So for those distances where high-speed rail is not competitive with aviation, that is where Hyperloop, I think, makes the biggest impact. And that's also what we had today during our business case, so that there was a lot of opportunity there.
Great. For the other Hyperloop startups, on what way you are working together today? I heard you have his number. Why? Maybe. I don't understand it. Can you come on stage? Yeah, come to us. Yeah. It's live.
Oh. Well, basically what we discovered together is that if we don't start from the beginning talking to each other, and we develop different technologies on our way without looking at the others' technologies, then maybe we can achieve a good system, but that can never be implemented because it's not compatible. And for example, we have the the rail case, no, where different rail gauges didn't enable connections between countries, and in the end, we are expending a lot of money on trying to implement interoperable systems after the invention of the rail. So right now, what we are trying to do is to create an interoperable system from the beginning. No, this is an idea that could solve and could make the Hyperloop system to have all the potential it could achieve. But because without that, maybe we can build a very expensive system that cannot be used by or cannot reach the highest potential and compete with rail or aviation.
No, come to us.
I don't know if I have much to add what was already said on that. So we are working together on the standardization of the system in the European Union. We are doing it also actively on the European Commission level. And we know that if we want to build a new mode of transportation, we need to work together, because the new mode of transportation cannot be done by one person or one company in the sense. And that's what we are already doing from the very beginning, just to speed up the whole process and to also not to make the mistakes that were already made by other modes of transportation up to now.
Thank you. Thank you. So a lot of startups, in total 5 startups are coming up on the European market who will play hopefully a major role in the future. Manuel, what do you think about that when you see it, when you hear it as a venture capitalist?
Well, first of all, it's interesting to see that there are several companies. So if it's a market where only is one player, then from a venture capital side, you always think, well, maybe there's not so much value in it. But just to see that we have in Europe, you mentioned 5. So I'm not sure globally, but maybe 100 or something like this. So that's too much, guys. Huh?
But in Europe, 5.
Yeah, in the morning, I visited several of these e-scooter companies, and they mentioned to me there are more than 100 several players in the market. So I guess in the Hyperloop environment, maybe it's 20 or something like this globally. And just to see this, is from a perspective definitely interesting. Because then you see it's not just an idea of 10 people or 5 people there willing to change the world, but then you see it's a more industrial case. And if it's come to an industrial case, then it's definitely worth to think about if, how, and we can invest in such solutions. But as I mentioned before, I think first of all we have to do our homework and then find the right options to do it. But that's the reason why I'm here, or why we're all here today, just to learn. And so that's my point on this take here.
Thank you. Christina, what do you see when these Hyperloop startups are coming up? Also, what is your feeling, your stomach feeling about it?
Well, my stomach feeling, as I said, the new forms of technology and new forms of mobility are always an interesting thing. And for me, of course, there are 5 startups in Europe. I would have thought it was more than 5 because of the interesting topic, actually. And it's always interesting to follow those innovations and those topics. Yeah, so my stomach feeling is good, but I am just not sure about the development, because we still have some issues on the topic that need to be solved before we actually go one step further.
Right. Okay, thank you. Giuseppe, what do you think when you hear about that? Is there any Hyperloop companies growing up in Italy right now, or what is your wish to the startups or to freelancers or other guys? Do you wish also like a Hyperloop startup is growing up in Italy?
As far as my knowledge is concerned, I don't know any startups working on the Hyperloop in Italy. RFI started following the Hyperloop in 2017 with studies in order to assess the technology readiness level of the Hyperloop and its transport value in Italy and in Europe. I think that it is issue that has to be tackled at a European level, of course, because we want to create a single mobility market in Europe, and we need common standards, but also transnational policy targets, for example, in mobility, in global climate change reduction, and also in social inclusiveness. So this is the opportunity for us to set from the very beginning the common standards and common targets, and it could really facilitate the adoption rate of the Hyperloop.
Thank you. Kai, on which way you are working right now together? What is your biggest challenge? Mars and you are working now.
Well, I think in line with what Mars already said, is what we're trying to do is bring relevant NS knowledge to the different Hardt initiatives, say like to feasibility studies and things like that. And that really ranges from, say, the more network-like topics to really customer experience. Recently also issues like ticketing, security. And quite often it is really funny to see that there are many more similarities than differences.
Great. From the Hyperloop startups, what is your wish to the train operators or to the train companies up to date?
From Celero's side, our wish would be to achieve a cooperation between all the different railway operators and public commitment to at least study with us the opportunities that Hyperloop could bring in Europe, and also making use of our expertise, because we are leaders in railway industry. We have a lot of expertise here, and most of it we believe it can be applied to Hyperloop, and we can be leaders worldwide. We know that in China they are already starting developing systems, also in US, but in order to keep competitive here in Europe, we believe we must stay together and bring solutions together to the market.
Thank you for this. Okay, so in our case, we basically need two things. Places for pilots and perhaps some investment. In our case, the technology, we're trying to build Hyperloop in stages, not all at once. So basically most of the subsystems can be tested first at existing railway infrastructure before we are ready with all the regulatory framework, social acceptance for new corridors. So basically we need two things, but first one is pilots. It can be an unused railway line of at least 15 to 20 kilometers, and that's it.
Apart from the existing railway infrastructure, are there any plans for implementing an Hyperloop infrastructure for either passengers or cargo transportation? What you are doing in your free time, Bertrand?
Yes, I'm doing music in my free time, but it's not the question. Heavy metal, to be honest. Yes, that's true. Yeah, that's right, but that's true. No, anyway, the question is, in terms of infrastructure, I will only talk about cargo. I said before, the 1 billion of more trucks in the road cannot be sustainable for everybody. It makes more noise, more traffic, and of course, a question of more accidents. And you know what? If we share all this market on the rail, everybody will save money, and the European Union can save 100 billions of euros of savings facing the new traffic and making goods from road to rail. 100 milliards of euro savings. It's possible in 10 years, only if you take the train. But the question is how making the train sustainable by itself. Everybody here, we are representing the classic railway operator. Nobody earns money with cargo. That's the point. So cargo the cargo part in railway is not today, has not found its business model. So the question I think I have to ask to the startups is, what is the business model? Nobody found the business model in railway with cargo for the time being. To be honest, we are very confident we will find it in the next 3 years to go by using one major lever, which is digitalization. And when we will be profitable and everybody is cooperating around this table for making this modal shift possible, then we will be able to think in a new way. Our classic business are EV trains, coal, minerals, petrol, oil, etc., etc. We are making more and more combined transport, but one major sector of the transport we cannot face today is the small parcel. Yeah, e-commerce. And the problem is in urban today, lorries cannot go inside the urbans. It's more complicated for the lorries. But everybody here is ordering on Amazon to have your parcel in less than 2 hours. So you want more parcel, quicker, more frequently, but the lorries cannot access to the city. There is a problem. So there we need some new solution, and I think this kind of solution can be done not for long running, in my opinion, but for short running, especially to access to the cities.
So you believe first of all in cargo or passenger transportation?
Now, in my job is logistics, so I talk about logistics. I'm not Guillaume Pépi, and not for the time, but no. To be honest, no. I cannot say. We are working on both and dealing with railway, long cruise approach. We are also working on that with the what could be the complementary of the TGV line. To be honest.
Okay. We need on stage 2 more glasses because they have to drink water, and after it's sparkling water. And after it's sparkling wine. So can you bring us 2 new glasses? Thank you. Thanksgiving. Kai, do you believe, first of all, in the Hyperloop cargo technology? You want to use it for the cargo or for passengers or both?
Well, as NS, we got rid of our loss-making cargo department more than 20 years ago. And I'm not sure whether Hyperloop might make us actually re-entering that market. So I can't really say anything about cargo. But yeah, I think for passenger transportation, I think I fully agree with what has been said before, that there is a niche. And quite a big niche actually between high-speed rail and long-haul aviation, which could be filled by Hyperloop. And I think that also distinguishes from, say, earlier similar predecessors.
Okay. And what do you see as the greatest obstacle in implementing the Hyperloop as means of transportation? The technology? The social acceptance, the law and regulations, the missing political support, or the missing investments? Please give us the priority 1, 2, 3 you think about.
And then mainly looking at it from a Dutch perspective, I think the mix of, say, political support and willingness to invest is probably joint number 1. I think that is something I see in the Netherlands, but probably broader in Europe. Say we don't have a culture at the moment where we just want to make that statement and invest in new infrastructure in a multi-billion way, and that is needed. So I think that is the biggest challenge, to find the funds and find a politician to go for it, and ideally. European consortium of politicians. That's what we are looking for, I think. Yep. I think social acceptance can be a challenging one as well, but I think it can be overcome. And I'm quite confident, but not being an expert, but that the technical solutions will come.
Great. Thank you. Mars, what do you think?
I agree in the point that, like, in the end, you know, the last step, basically in the entire process, is the political will and the financing for it. Those are the last steps in the process. Once you have those two in place, then you're just ready to build. But I think that in order to get to that point, you will need to go through the rest of your list. So you need, you know, so even though those are going to be the most important points in the end, you will have to tackle all of them. But I do think that for all the others, there's quite clear pathways. Like if you talk about law or regulations, we can learn a lot from rail, we can learn a lot from aviation. There's a few new things in Hyperloop, but those are also not things that we've never dealt with. So there's a pretty clear pathway on how to get to regulation. In the meantime, while setting up the regulation, if you work with the entire industry to set up the standards, then that's quite a logical path to get that off the ground. For social acceptance, in the end, a Hyperloop is very similar to an airplane in the terms of how you sit in it, or at least the experience inside. It's in a low-pressure environment, with which an airplane also is. So I think people will accept this, and what we have to do is just make sure that there are experience, and we're developing an experience to put at railway stations and airports next year, so that people can already experience what traveling with a Hyperloop would be like. So there's also a good pathway for that one. And for the technology, technology development, you use the same processes as for example, developing a new airplane. You go through your TRL levels, you build pieces of infrastructure to test with, and at some point you know that you can certify it, and you're there. So the point is, some of these challenges are very clear. You just have to go through the process, and the more you go through this process, the easier it will be to get the political support. Because if people accept this as a solution, and you've shown that it's feasible, yeah, that's
they have to
exactly. And I think the political climate is there to look at new ways of transporting, to solve the current challenges that we have, and to invest into the future. So I think if we tackle the first three challenges, of which there are pathways, then we have a pretty good chance to beat the last two.
Do you think it's a good idea to create like a garage or like a co-working space where we can all work together, and we give you the tools that every Hyperloop startups and also the train operators can come together and working on it, and then we invite the political members, we invite the end users,
exactly.
And we're going step by step, because when you were speaking about laboratories, I don't want to have such a PowerPoint presentation. No, I love the six senses. I want to feel it.
Yeah, you feel it, experience it.
That's why we are sit together.
Exactly. Yeah. So I can see you.
Yes.
Smell you.
Yes, thank you.
Just kidding, just kidding. No, but I agree with you. I agree with you. You know, we now have a lot of PowerPoints. We're building test facilities, but we need to sort of, you know, get a Hyperloop center where you have everything, where you go through the entire experience, get people together on standards and so on. Yeah.
Yes, well, I think you know, I think technology is not a topic here. We traveled to the moon several times. Hopefully, you never know, but I think we're close to it. But you know, if you see the air taxi market, for example, discussion in the society would definitely help out. You know, the topic of air taxi was placed in the society, I guess, 1 year ago by some politicians in Germany, and if you see what happens in the last year, several startups came up, and several opportunities also for rail companies to join the market. But it was, you know, ongoing discussion over the whole society, and the media, on TV, radio stations, and something like this. So I think this could definitely help out, because at the end, you know, politicians, they like to be, you know, part of a show and in front of TV stations, and they like to say something great and new and innovative. So if you have the chance to ramp up a topic for them, then you definitely get them on board, yeah.
Giuseppe, would you like or would you prefer to work with all of us together on a feasibility study where we are working on the technology, on the social acceptance, on the law and regulations? We can try to work in the same group, if you like.
Well, we are, of course, open to discussion about the topic of the Hyperloop, and to understand much in details which are the capabilities of the system, which is the way we can deliver a European network together. So, of course, we are open to discussion on this topic with you.
Christina, what do you think about it?
I think we as ÖBB are always open for innovative things and for new technologies. In case of Hyperloop, I think, as I said before, some obstacles and issues have to be solved. So we are happy to take to give our knowledge and to discuss those things. But we at this point we cannot make any commitment yet.
Same question, I assume. Yeah, so I would say to quite a big extent that's what we've been doing for the past few years, and and we really like it. So there's something we like to continue. And I would also say, and I think the other speakers said it as well, but it would be really good to do this at a European level, and almost also as a bit of a counter trend, because I think for so many years everything in Europe has been about competition and market, and at the end we are competing ourselves instead of the rest of the world. And I think with it's probably not easy because we are so much ingrained in say organizing ourselves in that way, but in itself Hyperloop could be a great experiment when it comes to doing something at the European level as well.
Bertrand, what do you think, when will be the time, in how many years the Hyperloop technology, the end users can use it? What do you think, in 10 years, in 20 years? What do you think with your experiences?
My question is, if I use my stomach language, as you said before, I would say ASAP, of course, but my brain today, facing the obstacles that was saying, I think in less than 15 years it will be good, because to be honest, there are a lot of things about regulations, infrastructure compatibility, and investments. And for the time being, I'm not sure we can find the real use case with sustainable business case. But if we find it, yes, this will be open. I'm fully agree. But for the time being, it's. I think you talked about Giuseppe about technological readiness level. We are quite early in the process, but well, it will move on the right. TRL 5, 6, the 7. Why not? Yes, it will be the good point. But it's quite early for the time being. I hope so. And what we are saying, what we are looking for the Virgin Hyperloop 1 operation is the same. It's not different from the lot of the other part of the Atlantic Ocean. So we are trying to make new things, but do not forget the current system of rail and moreover rail freight must be implemented, and quickly, very quickly, at the same time.
I like the idea, and I'm quite happy that you, Hardt Hyperloop and Hyperloop Poland, Solaris, Hyperloop, that you are working together on a system, on a European implementation, or Hyperloop European implementation standard. And yeah, we should do it, and we go forward at it. And what you learned today, you played a quite active role with your partners in the workshop, but what was your outcome from that workshop today?
I think what was really good was to take everybody else's perspective into account when developing such a network. So the workshop that we did was basically we looked at what the different modalities are that are available and looked at what the different niches are of these modalities, and then planned what a Hyperloop network in Europe could look like. And of course, you know, in our company we've looked at what a Hyperloop network could look like, but it's very important to also take into account what the local stakeholders feel. You know, what are important connections for them? What are the issues in their location? For example, you know, we are most of the studies we've done have been surrounding the Dutch, the Flanders, the part of Germany, but that has been pretty flat ground. But of course, you get into completely different issues when you're talking about rail systems in Italy, for example. So just taking all those extra perspectives into account, into your planning, into your costing, and so on, I think that was very interesting. And for the other session, it was mostly focused on the standardization. Maybe Alicia wants to...
Alicia, come on the stage. A taxi is coming to bring you here. Please warmly welcome for Alicia. You played a quite active role also for the workshop topic number 1 with me together. What was your learning, what can you bring home to Amsterdam, Delft?
I think the main takeaway is there's quite a bit of information that we can learn from rail and aviation both, and that's not just considering business models and strategy and so on, but also considering the accumulated amount of standards and which ones have worked, which ones haven't. We've all looked at the interoperability as one of the key objectives of standardization, and I think we all agree that the effort needs to begin before there's a system, a commercial system in place. This is what happened for rail. It was already commercialized in several countries. No interoperability was considered, and suddenly we find ourselves in a connected world where there's the demand for the network to operate faster and better. So the takeaway is, it's good to be here right now when the technology development is still ongoing for Hyperloop, and make sure that we see that point on the horizon where all of the technologies converge into the same system.
And you gave us a briefly update about psychology to why people have fearness to go into a lift or go into a Hyperloop. You spoke about a little bit. Give us a short introduction or executive summary of it. It was fantastic to hear what you said about it, really.
Yeah, I think what Martin is referring to, there is a lot of factors here in the scientific world that are actually more of a perception. Okay, so within the world of the service of the transportation, the perception of it, and so on, has to do with 70% of the feelings and sort of a stomach ache or stomach feeling, and there is another 30% that has to deal with actual hard calculations. So to give you a bit of insight, the latest and greatest science says that in any new modality, in any new mode of transportation, be it, a new elevator, flying taxis, or the Hyperloop, the fear of entering the system lasts for a very short amount of time. After which, by entering the system and making sure that, it travels safe and it can get me from A to B, what becomes very important is the customer experience, which is what also retains people in that modality. So I do believe that communicating that and putting that out more, that there is nothing unfamiliar about the Hyperloop. There's several novelties about it. It is in a confined space, and there is low pressure around the vehicle, but the escape route is much faster than we think. And I think education on these little factors that make people fearful of the system are key.
It will change. Then they want to have entertainment in the end.
Exactly. I think, and I have a question actually for a little bit for the panel. We have the rail operators here. Let's say the Hyperloop system is in place. Do you believe that you could be the operator?
Why always a question difficult for me? No, to be honest, yes, I think yes. Yeah, definitely, because as always, when you are talking about technology and you are talking about substantive, magnetic thing, etc., etc. But in the history of transportation, the manufacturer did not employ it and implement it and operate it. So the operations managing is a real huge experience. And believe me or not, every time a manufacturer wants to operate, he cannot at the end because he do not have the mindset to do that. That's so simple like that. So in my opinion, it's a crossing experience. I do not know how to build that, but we have to build together the system, and we have to operate as a system and not as a technology. That's very important. And you talked about the user experience. It's key, of course, it's key.
From my point of view, why not? I mean, nobody knows how to run a Hyperloop at the moment, so everybody who is going in that field has to learn. Rail operators have, of course, a lot of knowledge already from our existing business. So why not? Let's see.
Yeah, I would probably say yes and no. To start with the no, you could probably say that all the logistic processes are quite different to what we've been doing for 150 years or so. So from that perspective, you could probably say you don't need us as traditional operators. But I think at the end, it is about customers and customer acceptance and the trust you were just talking about. And there, I think, as long as we manage that in 25 years we are still relevant for our customers, then it could be really logical and it could be a win-win for actually the acceptance and indeed Hyperloop becoming part of a network.
So I agree that maybe it's too early to say with certainty that who can manage this system. But I really think that defining an efficient business model under all its aspects, it's very effective in order to identify which are the organizations that are more interested in and capable of delivering a real Hyperloop network.
Manuel, what's your purpose on it? What do you feel when you are hearing it from the other train operators?
What my feelings are very good. Let's say in this way. I mean, the question is, and to answer a question with a question is not really the topic here, I guess. But what kind of skills do you need to be an operator for that kind of technology? And if we have such skills in-house or in the company, then it's definitely a question we can say maybe or yes. And if we do not have the skills, then we definitely have to say no. But as you said, yes or no, we don't know yet. And if I see the Deutsche Bahn, for example, we are, we have several door companies from the real estate business to infrastructure to transportation. So we'll view in the future maybe there's a daughter company who operates the Hyperloop technology or not. But at the moment I cannot say if we definitely have the skills inside the company to do this. I'm not sure about this.
So now I want to ask the audience, and maybe you have some questions to us. A lot of questions. So maybe, Alicia, can you support me a little bit with the microphone? Thank you. And please speak loud.
Sure. Thanks. I want to actually add on to your question of operating, because we had a lot of talk about cooperation, a European model, but I think as soon as there's real money on the table, then the going's going to get a lot more rougher. So I wonder, how do you see this operating between the different countries? Are we going to see 27 different Hyperloop networks? Are we going to see competing Hyperloop operating companies on the same infrastructure? How do you see this all play out?
I can give some perspective of what we've been looking at. So we've done some looking into the different ways in which right now you have operatorship. You have both in rail. You usually have the model where there's a rail authority who owns the infrastructure, and then there's a concession for an operator for a certain route, right? And then for a certain time, an operator has to operate this specific route, and then there can be no competition during that time. Another model that's also very interesting is how you currently have it in aviation. So there you basically have airports. You have certain slots on those airports. There's a system in which you give those slots to airlines, and then airlines are just free to operate between these different locations. And I think it's actually very interesting to also look into, would there be a possibility to have a more open market in the Hyperloop, where basically the Hyperloop network is sort of the airspace. There's slots at Hyperloop stations, and that then it's possible to just have competition, that there might be an easy loop who has people standing inside the tube, and there may be an Etihad loop where you can lie down and get fed or something. Yeah. So and that's also an option. So I think it's very interesting to open this discussion also. Would you, do you need to have a concession, or might more like an operator network be possible as well?
Thank you. Next question.
Dieter Michel Oli, also from Deutsche Bahn, engineering consulting and international operations. Now, we've done already some studies, and We've actually worked on studies for freight, and we came to the conclusion that, at least for the study which we conducted, it did not seem to be effective and would not pay back compared to a conventional rail, where conventional rail is clearly far ahead of Hyperloop. But we also looked at, and that actually together with the ÖBB, at passenger transport. And there we found actually the opposite, that in passenger transport actually it does show that it becomes effective, and even compared to high-speed rail, enables a payback within a rather short time, including the infrastructure. But of course, depending on the amount of capsules that you can insert into the tube. The numbers that were discussed here today seem rather low compared to what is required to generate a payback. I think that today the major things, the major advantages that Hyperloop brings were not discussed, which are, from my point of view, the reason why conventional rail is so slow in implementation, mainly in developed countries, but also in not so developed countries, which is, as a main point, the right of way. If you look at conventional rail, of course, in China, you can just simply implement it because the land is completely owned by the government. But in most other countries, it's not the case. Now, this is the major advantage of Hyperloop, where you typically don't need so much space. Like for a double track high-speed rail, you would need at least 50 meters track width and a straight line. For Hyperloop, you don't need that. You can build next to a highway or to a whatever, any other existing alignment. This was not discussed today, and this is one of the major things that actually will help Hyperloop to be implemented rather quickly, in my personal view. And the other thing, which I think was also not really discussed today to that extent, is I don't think that this discussion about working together and trying to align is happening at the moment. It's actually not happening at all. And there's completely different concepts being built or developed at this moment. But the one who implements the first most likely will also succeed with it, because that will be the proof of concept. And that will actually show that the system is working. Now, of course, there are some implementations, well, rather short before being brought to life. And there are some sections, such as Dubai to Abu Dhabi or Pune to Mumbai, which are kind of getting close to an implementation. And most likely, if we see one of those projects, and then Austria actually was also quite close to implementing a piece of track, but at the moment is stepping a bit further away from it. But in the end, in Europe, it only depends on the political will, as you said correctly. And if the political will is there, the implementation costs are not the issue. Because the other huge advantage of Hyperloop is when you have difficult terrain, so gradients, Hyperloop does not really get much more expensive than it is in flat terrain. While conventional rail explodes in cost. If you look at Frankfurt to Cologne, where costs are like 10 times as much as compared to flat terrain. And this is actually the major other advantage. So in the end, I also disagree with the statement that longer distances are the reason to implement it. Actually, shorter distances are what we're going to see first, because it's about cost and it's about implementing first. So I must say I pretty much disagree with a number of things that happened here today and that were discussed today, because I think a short section is the first one to be implemented. I think in that sense, the first political will is going to be the one that is going to implement it. So that's what is going to bring it forward, and then everybody else will simply follow. And that's the one that's going to set the standard. And in that sense, working together on solutions is not going to help. So the one who wins is the one who has more money to implement his solution first. And the country that is brave enough to implement it will actually set the standard. And that's what we're going to see, in my opinion. And I fully believe that this is going to happen. Where depends on the bravery of the politicians. Well, my opinion.
Yeah. I tried it hard to get the political members and the government support here on it. Yeah, on the stage. And I tried it many times, but yeah, we will try it again and again and again. And I'm happy to have such great people here that they have the willingness to do it. Try and error in iterations. And that's what we are doing now. Yeah. Ladies first. No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Where am I going? There you go. Yes, hello, good evening. My name is Monica. I'm running the European Association of Rail Infrastructure Managers. So I'm from the old world. And I try to be as innovative as possible, despite my age. So that's why I'm here. I took the plane, went away from a meeting in the commission, ran on the plane. It was on time. Everything was great.
Would you come to us for a short discussion? It would better because a lot of friends are at home on the television or on the Facebook channel, and they want to see it. That you're not a robot.
Shall I do this?
Yes, that's great. Now she's living. She's not a robot. Thank you that you are here and that you came to us.
I admire your English. You're making great effort. So
thank you. Thank you.
In an hour you will be perfect.
Thank you.
Great.
I try my best.
Okay.
Thank you that you're here.
So can I get that? Okay, fine.
No, it's.
Can I have you also?
Yes.
Wow, great. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Someone wants to put makeup on me?
We don't do it.
Okay, so I'm from the old world, and I'm trying to be as innovative as possible. So I've been looking at Hyperloop with great passion, and I just love your comments. So I've been looking at what do I put on a passenger train? 1,000 people, a few dogs, bit of luggage. Great. I get on, I get off. Okay, I'm not as quickly as in France, because you have longer distances. Germany is a bit more crowded, so fine. So I stop more often. So what could Hyperloop do? How many people do I get in? I get a goldfish in, a cat, 40 people, which are not claustrophobic. Fine. The elderly, forget it. Accessibility, forget it. So I was just wondering, what is a business case for the Netherlands to have the Hyperloop between one major city and Schiphol Airport? What would be, is there any Finnish guy here? What would be the business case for a Finnish, for Finland, with a very rocky or very solid ground to actually drill a Hyperloop through the rocks, especially only at few moments through the year, because the rest of the time is quite cold. I've been there quite often. So what would be the added value? So where is the, I don't see the economies of scales. And guys, I want to, sorry, I'll get away from you, otherwise you'll hit me. You do everything from scratch. So I've learned that we will avoid the mistakes of the railways. Thank you very much. I know what I'm talking about. So I'm looking into interoperability and standardization. I'm looking into economies of scale every single day. I'm doing digitalization. Great thing. Fantastic. How much economies of scale can I create with digitalization? Because everything is bloody customized. So, and it's not because of me, because I was born too late. That was because of the Asian times. So you said there will be competition. So actually I already see the same circle and the same history, like in railways and Hyperloop occurring. I'm just challenging you guys. We can meet again in half a year and we have all the solutions. I'm with you, I love it. So what is, again, the business case for you to do everything from scratch? I love the idea of having a new braking system. Is anybody here from Knorr-Bremse having a new braking system? So actually, have you ever been to a fair, you know, a kermesse, you see, and you go that thing, you go up, and then it sucks you down. Great feeling. You do it once. If you have eaten, you will never do it again. Now, you do it on a Hyperloop. You don't go up, you just go like that. The effect is the same. So where is the non-brain smashing technology or the non-body smashing technology? You will have to do everything from scratch. And guys, you are looking into, yeah, I think so. Okay, you're the engineer, I'm the economist. So we can have a chat over later on. But actually, where do you avoid customization to the extreme? And I think you said it. I took note of everything. I love this kind of discussion. So you said we need interoperability with the railways. What can we take from the railways into the Hyperloop because it's so new and disruptive? Tell me. We need new material, we need new technologies, braking and acceleration. We have to avoid smashing people into the wall because the tolerance values are so low. And we are speaking about speeds more than 200 kilometers, okay? Then the goldfish in a glass bowl is already, you see, smashing against this little glass bowl. So actually, you really need to think about the system from A to Z. And then bloody see what you can take from anywhere else, from whatever automotive, aviation, whatever it is. Otherwise, the costs will just make you explode. And if you're speaking about time horizons of 20, 25 years, by then, guys, I guarantee you, I have invented something else, and I will see here each other again, and then I'll become with a little, you see, in a wheelchair. But if you are not disruptive quickly at a low cost, forget it. You'll be and the most interesting thing and the most disruptive thing for mobility.
The best part there is that we just finished our test facility in Delft, which was 70% was completely provided by industry in Europe who could just use the solution they already had. That's exactly what you're saying.
Look at Rastatt. I love Rastatt. You love Rastatt, right? Rastatt was a great case. I came back from holidays. I'm not from Deutsche Bahn. I mean, honestly, wow, that was a great job, honestly. So how can you avoid Rastatt? You see, with Hyperloop, you imagine, Rastatt was compared to an accident with Hyperloop, Rastatt will be a minor thing. It's all about perspectives. You see? And then you need years to drill something or years to get a project validated. How do you manage this with Hyperloop? And how do you avoid to have, for example, I loved maglev. It was a great technology. I was still a student at that time. Yeah. But how do you look, where is maglev in Europe? Where is it? Yeah, exactly. So why is it in China? Because nobody wanted it. You had you had to have a really straight, perfect infrastructure that will never work. You see, and you needed something really from the scratch, and that doesn't work in Europe anymore. It's very difficult.
You were wrong, I have to say.
We'll talk.
Please come to us.
Then please come.
Stand up because the audience and the social media freaks,
I'm from the independent infrastructure managers. So challenge me.
All right. Now, I can let you know where the major differences are. Now, you're right in terms of the maglev system.
Yep.
A maglev system really does need a rather straight track and also a rather massive track because the trains are still trains. Now, here in this case, the major difference is that you have rather small pods. So you said 40, well, I would rather say 25 people in a pod, so rather small pods. And with the small pods, you have a rather small weight that you add to a track. Now, consider, say, 3 meters diameter of a tube. You actually don't need to drill huge tunnels, but you can rather use an alignment of an existing autobahn, because the difference compared to rail, where, say, a train, you have to build a track for a train such that you have the possibility to stop the train at any place on the track. Now, if you want to be able to stop at any point in time, and your alignment has an embankment that allows more than a certain level, then your train would fall off the track if the embankment is too high. Now, with a Hyperloop, that's different because you can enable any embankment.
But you cannot do too many curves.
Well, you can.
But
That's what I'm trying to say.
Degrees in the curves.
You could follow an alignment of an autobahn with much higher
could.
speeds than...
But we are speaking about cities. We want to go into the city. So an autobahn,
Of course, in the city
hardly
you will not
goes
drive into a city with 1,000 kilometers an hour,
Yeah.
but you don't need to, because that's the last mile, so to say. So there, even if you approach only with 100, you're still a lot faster than the traffic with 30 kilometers an hour. So you would
But
still
if I
be a
need-
lot faster
but
than a
if
train.
I need also to calculate, because an attractiveness of a system also goes with the last mile, and we all know it. So if
Yes.
I have to go, and if you have to take 1 or 2 or 3 different modes to get to the Hyperloop, and because I have no interconnectivity, you see, I cannot quickly add a crossing or something.
That's true.
It's once, and then it's
I
until...
think you're right in that sense. You always need the interconnectivity. You will never dispose of existing rail, metro, and other modes of transport. But the difference of Hyperloop is that you can actually, because the system is rather light, you can elevate it on top of a street or as a wall of a street.
If you manage to get this validated and there are now houses next to it, fine.
Obviously,
Yeah,
but
we have
the
the same
difference to
problem.
an existing railway is an existing railway needs so much more space. For a high-speed rail, you need about 50 meters for 2 tracks,
Yeah.
50 meters of width. For Hyperloop, you need 3 meters each, or if you put them on
But you
top of
need
each
to
other.
elevate it, which you don't need with...
You don't need to elevate it. You can also put it underground, but in the end, you can put it in the water or whatever you want. But the major difference is you need a lot less space, and depending on the frequency of vehicles, you can also have a capacity similar to a high-speed rail. And that's the major advantage of
but
it.
if
Less
you
space,
still need to enter the
better
Hyperloop
curves.
system, so I need to have, I mean, I would like to avoid the effect of an airport, which I have now. And this is what
Yeah,
I'm a bit fearing with the Hyperloop, because I looked it up from end to end.
But you have to look at the different options that are there. And if the option means you build a new railway system, well, that does not fit into the cities anyway. The cities are crowded already. The traffic is crowded on streets. So what is the option? You can't build more streets, and you can't build another railway.
Where do you build a new Hyperloop system in Berlin, for example? Or Cologne? I come from Cologne, very crowded, 140% capacity booked on the track. I love this kind of
Well, we do have existing rail corridors, as an example, or
Yeah.
existing streets.
I know, I deal with
So
corridors, fantastic.
as I said already, the one possibility is to use it as noise protection to existing streets, because the size is so small that you can actually build it on the site of a highway and not need an additional alignment. And
I
you're not
have
entering the city
space,
with
if
1,000 kilometers per hour. Or you use an existing railway line, which always also has noise insulation and at the side enough space to access it. So there's always such spaces which are available. And in that sense, this is the only way in developed countries that you can really add an
That's
additional
the problem.
railway
Now, you
or
don't
an
have it
additional
everywhere.
transport system.
Look at Cologne, Frankfurt. Do you find space to? Okay, there are a few cows before Frankfurt. I know a lot of tunnels. Would it be possible to have a Hyperloop there?
This is what I was just saying. This is the major advantage. You don't need to build bridge after tunnel after bridge as we have done for our high-speed line. This is our high-speed line at the moment. I mean, our high-speed line looks like that, and that's why the cost exploded. So we paid about 100 million a kilometer. So that's extremely
So you're saying
expensive.
the cost for building the Hyperloop infrastructure and operating is cheaper than the railways?
Well, mainly in difficult terrain, clearly yes, but also when it comes to needing to acquire land. This is the major advantage. We would almost not need to acquire land. And that is the biggest trouble. We've been dealing with the high-speed line in Saudi Arabia, and the biggest trouble in Saudi Arabia to build the high-speed line was not, well, sand or temperature or others, the land acquisition, because each piece of land belongs to somebody, and they don't have a depropriation law like we do have in some European countries, where you can just simply acquire the land and compensate the owner. But actually to acquire the land in some countries is more difficult than in Europe.
And one last question, then I'll leave you in peace and we can have a struggle outside. Yeah. Energy. You need a very, very high energy peak.
I completely disagree with you.
Okay, great. And tell me, because you have to dissipate it and you have to also generate and you have to transport it, so tell me everything about it.
I think
Can you short answer? maybe 10 sentences. Is it possible? I'm happy that you
I
are.
leave it to you.
No, I'm happy
You
that.
asked me to come.
Of course, for sure. Please answer shortly, and I want to follow up the discussion laterly because we have a lot of questions and a lot of people wants to join, and I'm quite happy to have you here because we need challenges and disruptive and all like this, and yeah, it's not easy to do it, but we need the right people to bring on the table, and that's I'm quite happy that we have such an emotional discussion on it, for sure.
Tell us about energy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there are systems which are built and based on battery-driven pods. Now, if you have battery-driven pods, the big advantage of a battery pod is in the end that you can charge it at night with night power. We do have a lot of excess power in different times, especially at night times, and when the wind blows in Germany. So where in those cases you can actually store the energy, and the pod will drive whole day with one battery charging.
At high speed or at just?
Well, the huge advantage is there that you only need the acceleration power, and once the pod is at speed, it almost does not consume any energy. So at the deceleration, you regenerate maybe up to 50-60% of the energy. So you regain some of the energy that you used for the acceleration. Of course, not all of it, but some of it. And in that way, you basically have a much better energy consumption than compared to conventional transport, also compared to aviation, for example. And that's basically the answer to it.
With the batteries, you maintain with the batteries, you maintain the vacuum also in the pod?
No, the vacuum is not in the pot, but the vacuum is in the tube. And the vacuum is maintained by a number of pumps. But as long as you keep the pod all the time in the vacuum, and you don't take the pod out of the vacuum, but you just have docks to open doors and to even allow wheelchair access, which you doubted that will be possible, but of course would make sense. So obviously even that would not be an issue. So the vacuum is an issue when you have a rather difficult system, like in Switzerland. There was a plan to evacuate tunnels, but that's a much more complicated scenario. Here in this case, if you evacuate a defined and sealed tube, keeping up the vacuum is not something that will consume considerable amounts of energy.
And do you evacuate people by drilling a hole into the tube?
Well, I think every system has different evacuation concepts, but one concept is, of course, to just run the pod even without a vacuum to the next exit station, or to even have exit possibilities every mile if the vacuum drops and people have to walk out. But I think that's the least good way forward. So like an airplane, safe is continuing to fly to the next point of safe exiting. That's probably the best way to handle it. I don't think you would get a swimming vest on Hyperloop.
So many thanks for the active discussion we had, and we would love to clap your hands for you and for all. And at least I want to give the word also to our panelists here to say one sentence is, what is your wish for the future and the topic of to bring the Hyperloop technology on board?
Well, I think today we've seen that so many people are so passionate about, say, really making this happen. And I think that is, if we keep on that spirit and including all the different views and all the challenges, I think we will get somewhere. And so that's my wish, probably. Just keep on the good work.
Thank you.
I am convinced that in some years' time, maybe not 5 years, but maybe 30 years, there will be a mode of transport that we don't know yet. So if it might be Hyperloop or if it might be air taxis or whatever it will be, we will see when the time comes.
Okay, so I feel that we definitely need to see a test track fully functioning, and that I think that the momentum that this movement of the Hyperloop has gained can really help us to develop new modes of transportation that are more effective than the one that we have now.
Well, if we wanna keep traveling the way we do right now, we need solutions like a Hyperloop. If we even want to broaden our horizons, we're definitely going to need something like a Hyperloop. Well, today we've shown that, or at least together with all the rail companies, is that there's a nice business case for Hyperloop throughout Europe. I also agree that Hyperloop makes a lot of sense for shorter distances, but in terms of, getting the political support, I thought it would be best to look for a case where I'm not competing directly with the rail companies. Now, we just finished our test facility in Delft. Next month we will also announce it to the world, show that we can levitate, stabilize, even perform a lane switch without any moving components. So keep your eyes open for an invitation for that. And looking forward to the next session.
So yeah, I guess my wish for all of your startups is that there will be this Tesla moment for the whole industry. So I follow up the discussion, but at the end you need a crazy mind and the vision to build something. And as I also learned, this is kind of Elon's idea to ramp up the Hyperloop concept, maybe in an open source way or whatever it was. But to see this Tesla moment for your industry, that will be very interesting. And I definitely like to join one of the first Hyperloops. So at some point I'm a crazy guy. My girlfriend knows that. Whenever it comes into a new mobility mode, I'm the first guy who like to test it out. So hopefully I can test it out with you guys in a couple of years here.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank you, the audience, and my colleagues, because a lot of questions are arriving, in my opinion, on what will be the future. What is sure is that for the classic, I would say, and current system of rail, it is not optimized for the time being. In less than 5 years, we will have autonomous train on the track. That will be the real world. In 10 years, there will be passengers also, but we will announce next week in Vivatech Technologie in France, a huge project about digital and autonomous train for freight in France and on a major link. This is our challenge in the 5 years to go. But anyway, if I project myself, I ask now, what will be the solution for urban logistics? What will be the solution to access to the cities? What will be the solution to provide solutions of mobility for low dense region where we have trains, but the trains are totally empty for the time being? How can we provide sustainable mobility with this kind of rural places? This is one of the challenges we have to face, and I think Hyperloop, if it's profitable, if we find the right use case, yes, that could be a solution. Not the only, probably, but one of the solutions.
Thank you. Hyperloop Poland, maybe you want to say also one sentence in the end,
okay,
please.
So a little bit of other advertising following Mars, if I can. So we're currently raising some money in London using equity crowdfunding on Cedars, one of the leading European platforms for this. We will build also a small-scale proof of concept, 50-meter long track. This will be ready this summer, so if someone is interested and would like to come to Warsaw, you are more than welcome. And hopefully with funds coming, as we expect they will this year, we should be ready to build a full-scale prototype next year. But we are starting with a non-vacuum system, something that is integrated to existing railway. We're just adding a linear motor and magnetic track to test the components, and we think it's a much easier way to start with until we are ready to get to a full Hyperloop when we have the regulations, social acceptance, planning, zoning, and so on. So we will be very happy to host you also in Warsaw this summer if someone is interested.
Thank you.
Well, from Spain, just a quick comment that I'm really glad to be here with the railway industry represented. I would also like to see the aviation industry also involved. Maybe for next session we can also convince them. We are taking a step forward. We believe Hyperloop industry is growing at a really good path. We are developing a 2-kilometer test track in Spain where we will be able to test all the subsystems at a at 1/3 of the scale of the Hyperloop system, and we are already working with the Hyperloop companies on the standardization, where we would be really glad to see a real scale test track where European Commission can also get involved, as well as the industry. So I'm really glad to be here, and yeah, I will invite you to see the test track in Spain once we get it by the start of next year.
Thank you. Thank you. So, it's time to end the podium discussion. First of all, I want to thank you to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, and I will work on my Saxony English in the future too, so I will come back with a better English soon. And I want to thank you also for the ÖBB for sponsoring the room, the space, the great atmosphere here and the network. Thanks for it, really. I want to thank you to my team of New Horizons who supported me at all. I want to thank you to the panelists here to came to discuss, to be an active part, and I would love that we can all work on a feasibility study together to find answers on all these questions we have right now, with the right people, with the heart on the right side. We need it, for sure. And I want to thank you also for sponsoring of the food of A and D. You have great food outside from here. Please, shaking your hands. Thanks for it. Really, and try the food. It's now ready. It's the snacks. It's really delicious. And also thank you Schlumberger for the sparkling wine. You can try outside too. Schlumpy.
Keep in mind that we have to go back to Berlin at 5 a.m., right?
Yes, at 5:15 our taxi is coming to bring us to airport. But I love to work with you guys, and I love what I'm doing. Working time is lifetime, and I want to do it with the right people, and I'm happy to do it with you, for sure. So, yeah, thank you. Yeah. Parisan will play a song from the new album, so please close your eyes, enjoy it. The next 1 or 2 songs from Parisan, and I'm happy that you played an active part here, and I'm happy to see you back again for the next topics, future technology topics. Thank you at all. Bye bye.
Yes, at the end, this Hyperloop is about infrastructure, is about regulation, so then the government has to step in.
It was a very interesting discussion and an interesting workshop. I learned that there are already railway companies investing in startups, Hyperloop startups, and I think this is very interesting. The technology is quite difficult, and we still face some issues, but I am happy or looking forward what we will see in a couple of years.
I think that the Hyperloop is proposing itself as a sustainable revolution in mobility. I think it has the potential to transform our society and transform the way how we perceive distances and the way we live.
I invite all the rail companies to work together with us to do a feasibility study for Hyperloop in Europe together, and then realize Hyperloop in Europe.
Today in Vienna we met some Hyperloop companies, we met our European colleagues, and what we can think at the end is that the future is not written, and we have to write the future. There are plenty of questions already to be solved, and then we will be together to make that again together.
Well, in my view, the biggest challenge to get Hyperloop to life in Europe is that, firstly, we need a political decision for the first system. The first system will trigger all the others to follow. But the first system is the crucial one to be built. Not for a long system, but for a first short, real test section.
Ich meine, es war super spannend zu sehen, wie auch andere europäische Bahnen mit dem Thema umgehen. Wir haben die niederländischen Bahnen da gehabt, die französischen Bahnen. Interessant, dass sie in die Themen schon investiert haben. Und ich denke, das ist für uns ein spannendes Wissensvorsprung, der da schon da ist, und an dem können wir auf jeden Fall partizipieren.
Also Leute, wir haben einfach leckere Argumente mitgebracht. Es gibt dann geniale Gespräche, super Stoff und der Magen freut sich auch.